Hello and welcome to a new edition of the Daily Scope, your guide to what's headlining newspapers in the world today. I'm your host, Kareem Abdel Samad, and with me in the studio is none other than the political analyst, Dr. Nabil Khalil. Dr. Khalil, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Well now, viewers, let's start our tour with what's headlining newspapers in the Middle East. Starting off with the Kuwait Times, Emir opens Arab summit with call to end disputes, meeting struggles to heal rifts. Furore over vacant Syria seat. And from the UAE's The National, Kuwait calls for regional unity in facing crises. Qatar Emir criticizes Arab League leaders. Sheikh Tamim's speech looks set to widen rift. And from there to the Oman Tribune, end law of arms to Syria combatants, says Brahimi. And from Egypt's Independent, Arab summit kicks off with calls to arm Syria rebels. And from Qatar's Peninsula, Brotherhood head 628, others tried. And last but not least for this region, from Turkey's today's Zaman, ruling AK party promises more despotism if it wins big in local polls. Government toughens war on Twitter, bans more sites. So now, Dr. Khalil, first off, I'd like to talk about the Arab Summit. It's the 25th Arab Summit that started yesterday and ended today under the theme of Unity for a Better Future. Now, what I have in front of me over here is a 7-point agenda for the Arab Summit, basically discussing the Syria crisis, the Palestine crisis, the rift between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain. You have also the terrorism in the region, economic cooperation, the issue of security in Lebanon, and the political transition in Egypt. Now, first off, since the summit ended today, if any, what achievements or concrete results has this summit come out with, in your opinion?
Well, in my modest opinion, it's nothing. They achieve nothing. Among these 7 subjects, if we look fast, and generally to each of them, in Syria, what they did, Saudi Arabia is still helping the Salafist and group of Al-Qaeda all over the country. Qatar is doing the same with the groups that are sympathizing with the Brotherhood of Syria. And recently, after the Battle of Yabrud, they opened the situation on Kasab in order to get these entrants from the sea side to supply their battlefield fighters in Syria, which is nearly nothing. Syria had been in the summit without having the representative of the so-called opposition on the seat of Syria.
I want to talk about the Syria issue, but I want to postpone talking about this a little bit. Other than the Syria, other than the Syria file, out of the other 6, what do you think are...
Nearly nothing. In Palestine, they did nothing for Palestine. Now
Jerusalem, now
Al-Quds is going
of Israel on the Palestinian Authority, and at the same time they condemn Israel and refuse to acknowledge Israel.
What's condemning Israel? Come on, they've been condemning Israel for more than 50 years, and we see nothing on the ground. Israel is taking Al-Quds. They are taking every piece of wall, every piece of stone, and they are destroying the human power of the Palestinians in Jerusalem.
Okay, just a small question over here. Do do you agree with the statement that says that under the table, all of these countries are actually dealing with Israel, at least having talks with Israel, but in front of their people, in front of the world mainly, they're just saying that they condemn Israel and all of those just to save face?
I don't think that they even have a success to clear their face, to keep their face safe in front of their people. What the Emir of Qatar said, that we agree on $1 billion to help Al-Quds. And now, as we couldn't get this money, we are going to donate this part of our money, which is Qatar money, to the Authority of Palestine, which is Ramallah. So what about Al-Quds? What's the situation there? Nobody talk about that. What they did in Palestine. What they do with Gaza. Gaza, United Nations yesterday called for the opening of borders from Israel's side and from Egypt's side. So we have Egypt with Israel blocking the entrance of life on Gaza.
On the Gaza Strip, yes.
What they did about that? Nothing. We are getting Doha to have Hamas and the authority to have talks. There have been talks. What you did about the blockage of life, the breath, the frontier of Gaza and with Egypt, the frontier of Gaza with Israel. What you did about that? Nothing.
Well, okay. They also discussed the terrorism in the region. Basically, they talked about disarming all the weapons of mass destruction in the region so that they wouldn't go into the wrong hands, as they said.
What they did about it? We are not blind. Like they're taking us for naive, actually, by saying this, because who is supplying the terrorists in Syria and the old region? We know this from Afghanistan time against the ex-Soviet Union. We know who supplied this between Egypt and
Saudi
Egypt,
Arabia
Mubarak, and Saudi Arabia and all the Gulf countries. And we know who's supplying them now. There is a big file that was supposed to go to United Nations by United States, accusing Saudi Arabia of supporting these terrorists. What we are talking about? How can they fight terrorists and they are actually supplying them? They are funding them.
That's very, very true. Now, the National over here says Kuwait calls for regional unity in facing crises. Qatar Emir criticizes the Arab League leaders, and Sheikh Tamim's speech looks set to widen rift. Okay, whilst on the other hand, the Kuwaiti Emir said that the issue of Qatar versus Saudi Arabia, UAE and Bahrain is not an issue to be discussed in the Arab Summit, but it is to be discussed in the Gulf Cooperation Council. So why doesn't, well, with an issue like this, which is actually a big issue, it's not really a small one, why did he refuse to actually discuss it within the Arab Summit?
Because there are other opinions in this area. While on the Gulf group countries, there is kind of coherence of ideas about keep pushing the Bahrain people and keep pushing the demands, the legal demands, the right demands of the people of Bahrain. So if they open it to the Arab countries, there will be different opinion.
So what you're trying to say over here that if they keep it within the GCC, then they can actually push Qatar to the corner, have it in the corner, or corner Qatar in order for them to get what they want out of it.
They will get what they are getting what they want against the people of Bahrain on this group of Gulf countries.
We're talking about the Qatari rift with Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain. Remember last week, or about 10 days ago, due to Qatar being supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain, they took back their ambassadors, and this basically caused a rift between them. So, and this is the rift that they're actually talking about, not internal Bahrain.
Yeah, actually, this subject is related to the Bahrain situation, and the difference between Saudi Arabia and Qatar is related to the position of Qatar in Syria and Qatar in Egypt versus the position of Saudi Arabia in these both countries.
Okay.
And this situation is going to be for long, because Qatar is not going to go back easy on this subject, not as fast as Saudi Arabia want. This is going to cause Qatar if they withdraw from the situation, from their position in Egypt, with the Brotherhood, helping Brotherhood in Egypt, and helping the same group of them in Syria, it's going to affect their position, their old position on the area, and their power, the power that they are looking for in this subject in Egypt and in Syria, plus the power they're looking for as a country. This is Qatar trying to be different, trying to be bigger than the real size of it.
Of Qatar. Now, do you agree with what Qatar is doing against, like, basically standing its grounds when it comes to what it says, not with what it's actually saying, but the position it is taking by standing its ground against Saudi Arabia and Bahrain? Not with what they're actually saying, okay, not with supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, but with standing their ground when it comes to their decision to support whomever they want to support.
You see, what you can see between these two countries are the same position regarding what they are doing in the area is not to develop the area. They have different point of view about how to destroy the area.
Okay.
Actually, they are not discussing how to develop these countries. We are not talking about different position of how to develop our countries, the Arab countries. They have different position how to destroy Egypt, how to keep Egypt in the same situation of, say, polarism on Egypt, and how to keep Syria in the same deteriorated situation where they're violent in Syria and in the whole area, because this is about the whole area. It's not about Egypt and Syria, but affecting the whole area, even these same country that we're talking about. So actually, I don't see any difference between both the discussion. It's merely discussion of how to keep destroying ourselves.
Okay, well, you mentioned Syria, which is a good thing, because I would like to actually move to Syria now. Over here, we see that in the Arab Summit, still around the Arab Summit, we see that in the Arab Summit, the Syrian representative seat was empty since Syria's participation was suspended from 2001. Yet last year, the head of the Syrian National Coalition, Ahmed Jarba, has taken this position, has taken this seat. This year, he did not take this seat due to legal obligations that he has to actually give first. So in your opinion, what are those legal obligations to start with?
There is no legal obligations. We all know that they bargains. They try to have Ahmed Jarba in this seat and say next year he will have more space in Syria. Now they see that since March 2011, we see that this is not any kind of revolution. It's not revolution. It's groups of terrorists from all over the world, helped by 58 or 59 countries all over the world, and intelligence from the main potencies of the world. Yeah, and they're trying to take over Syria. We see that this plan did not work. Now they are losing battle after battle, Qusayr, Yabrud, and we are seeing more of them. And these groups are not getting anywhere. Even this man, who is Jarba, or whatever his name is, he is not representing the opposition of Syria.
He doesn't represent all of the opposition in Syria. Maybe one or two groups.
Not even the main group in Syria. Not even 20% of the groups who are fighting on the ground of Syria. So who is he to sit on the ground, on the seat of Syria? Syria is a power of the region. It's one of the biggest power on the region, and no one like Jarba can sit on this.
So you basically agree with the theory that says that there are double standards when it comes to the Arab Summit, when it comes towards Syria. Since the Syrian delegation wasn't there, Ahmed Jarba was there, and plus on top of that, they condemned terrorism, yet they also condemned the Syrian government for creating terrorism in Syria. So do you agree that these are actually double standards towards Syria?
It's hypocrisy. It's more than double standards. It's hypocrisy. Okay. How can you accuse a government of Syria of helping terrorists to be there, and he is fighting terrorists?
Okay, something else. Part of the let's call it, the results of the Arab Summit when it comes to the Syria file, when it comes to the Syrian crisis file, is that they want to find a political solution on the ground as per the Geneva I communique. Now, the Geneva I communique discusses quite a few things. One of them is stopping terrorism, two is a transitional government, and the list goes on. So which one of those, which one of those points in the Geneva I communique do you think does the Arab Summit wants to actually follow? And in what way do they want to actually follow it?
The only way that the Arab Summit can follow is if they can get together to one opinion. They know that they cannot have the majority of the Arab countries. That's why we don't have manifest. We have kind of from the Kuwait
Yes.
Summit. They cannot get together. They cannot get common opinion about the situation in Syria. So it will be the same subject. If you want to discuss coalition of government, you need to have common cause for this coalition.
You need to have common ground.
Yes.
That's something else. You need to have all the parties that are on the ground in Syria around on the table in order for you to be able to discuss
Not
it, if I'm not
necessarily. You
mistaken.
can have the majority. You can have the people representative. You can have even 40% of these called opposition group sit together with the government, and they can make change in Syria.
Where was the government here, though?
Say that again?
Where was the government here? Or the delegation of the government?
On this, the government is not represented in
The government was not represented whatsoever. I just said.
not physically, but yes, the government was represented on some other opinion of some other country's opinion.
Other
which
countries'
is
opinions.
influence.
But if you want to discuss the crisis of a specific country, don't you think that they should have the representative of that country available? Who
Yes.
are you going to discuss the issue with? People of other countries or the country in question?
Actually, the situation of Syria is demanding that there is talk to other countries. There must be talk to other countries. There must be agreement between other countries. If we have respiration, if we had respiration on the time of Geneva II, it's because some other countries agreed to sit together, like Russia and United States, like Iran and other powers of the area. If they get together to find a solution, we need them to get together to find real solution for the country. But if this difference between those big potencies and in the international area and in the region area keep going deeply and profoundly dividing them, we are going to see prolonged time of delaying this agreement.
Okay, well, viewers, we'll be back right after this short break.
Beyond the lines, beyond the surface. Depth, clarity, substance. Beyond the discourse.
Beyond politics, beyond the shallowness of everyday politics.
When it is time to kill, you know how to kill well.
Turkish people supported Palestinian freedom.
Headed by the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Turkey is an Islamic country.
What is known about it is only the top of the iceberg that will disappear underwater.
Viewers, welcome back. And before the break, we were in the Middle East. Right now, we're traveling to the Israeli entity. Starting off with the Jerusalem Post, Kerry to meet Abbas in Amman in last-ditch effort to salvage talks. PA leader tells Arab League Israel would bury Kerry document. Israeli officials regret Abbas is not seeking Arab world support for compromise. And from the Haaretz, Kerry to meet Abbas in Amman in efforts to salvage negotiations. And from the Yedot Ahranot, doubts surface on Gaza destination of rockets seized by Israel. So I'd like to actually discuss the issue of the Jerusalem Post and the Haaretz. They say that Kerry is to meet Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in Amman in order to try to salvage negotiations. Now, what negotiations do they want to salvage if Israel is, if the Israeli entity is still standing their ground when it comes to the continuation of building settlements, to sticking to their no right to return of the Palestinians, amongst other things that they are refusing to actually deal with and talk about. So what negotiations are there in the first place to salvage?
Actually, the United States is trying to, especially if we're talking about Kerry mission, he's trying to get both groups together in order to have this agreement toward a situation where the Palestinian Authority can recognize, even partially, what is called the Jewish state of Israel. If he can get the Palestinian, push the Palestinian toward this main subject of the Israeli, which is having the state of Israel as a Jewish state, this could be the way to open the negotiation between.
Yes, but that also means say goodbye to the Palestinian cause since 1948.
It's not only that. It means that it will clear the green, what we call the territory that been occupied in 1948 of all Arabs, and we have seen some reports, Israeli reports, talking about clearing this area, which is the north area of Palestine, now occupied by Israel, clearing it of all the Arab people after getting the authority recognizing the Jewish state of Israel. If you recognize that I am Jewish state, then take your people out. Let's say take the Palestinians out, because this is the main challenge now. We are talking about demographic challenge in the north of Palestine. There are nearly 40% of if we are talking about 2020, it will be nearly 40% of the people are going to be Palestinians. So they need to get rid of this what they call unbalanced demographic situation of the north of Palestine. So you're actually changing even not only the demographic situation of Palestine, of the historical Palestine, you're even changing the history of the coast, the real history, which is right of Palestinians on this land because of the historic reasons. You are changing this historic reason that had been taking, you have been taking their land by another story, which is, this is Jewish history, and they came back to their land.
This is a Jewish state, so yes. What are non-Jews doing here?
Yeah.
Now, something else. We're only about a month away from the 9-month deadline that Kerry has given for the peace talks between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli entity. Can we also safely assume that Kerry is trying to do whatever it takes now at the last month, because he hasn't really achieved anything within the past 8 months? So now he's trying to push things even further in order to at least say that he has achieved something when it comes for this cause.
They're trying to get 1 year prolongation for this negotiation, and Israel is pushing the authority by saying we are not going to free any prisoner if you do not prolong this negotiation for 1 year. Prolongation of negotiation that is doing nothing doing nothing for the Palestinians, of course, can do, on the other hand, plenty for Israelis. They give them chance and time to clear Palestinians from Al-Quds and to clear Palestinians from West Bank. And as well as having the collaboration of the Palestinian Authority, what they call the security collaboration, to persecute the fighters, the Palestinian fighters in West Bank and in all Palestinian territory. So this collaboration plus the time to clear Palestinians and put Jewish in their place, whether in Al-Quds or in other side of the West Bank territory, is need time. And this year of talking and negotiation without doing anything
basically
can
what,
give them
can
the
give
time
them
that they need.
Okay, well now viewers, let's travel to Europe and see what news we have there today. Starting off with the Wall Street Journal, U.S. warns Russia, NATO stands ready. And from the Scotsman, NATO chief vows to defend our allies. Secretary General ups the stakes in Ukraine with warning to Russia. And last but not least for the European region, from the Moscow Times, G8 expulsion leaves Russia unfazed. So now when it comes to Russia, we see that things are still not calm. And we see now that U.S. is warning Russia with NATO this time. Now, will the NATO do anything about this? Because from what we know, that NATO is not to interfere unless there is a military crisis going on in a certain country for the NATO to actually interfere.
No, actually, I think
Correct
that
me if I'm
NATO and the United States can only interfere if if we are talking about weak state or weak country, like if we are talking about Burkina Faso or Somalia or this kind of countries. But if we are talking about a powerful country like Iran, if we're talking about a powerful country like Russia,
we're talking about one of the biggest superpowers in the world over here.
That's what we're talking about.
So
and
what can NATO do, or what would NATO do?
Absolutely nothing. And Barack Obama said that we are not going to go to military adventure against Russia. On the contrary, I think that Russia is putting this NATO in a crisis, and they are putting the group of West European countries in a crisis, because they actually can do nothing in Ukraine. Legally and under the international law, Crimea had been and is today back to Russia. It's done.
Crimea was once part of Russia. It took its independence, went with Ukraine, and now it took its independence from Ukraine, and it has requested. And
legally
legally and officially
under the
for
international
Russia
law,
to take her back.
So it's been taken care of. Now there are some other areas to discuss with Ukraine, which is the east and the southeast of Ukraine, which has the majority of
Russian speakers or Russian
yes.
Majority let's call them, of these people of Russian descent.
Yes, people of Russian ethnic groups in this area. And they need to have the support of Russia, and Russia cannot leave them alone. They have to support them till they have the security they need. We are talking about fascist group that took over by the help of United States and the West, took over the Kiev power. Fine. Now, how to deal with the country? Can you deal with these fascist groups that are attacking and killing in arbitrary way the Russian and other ethnic group, even Muslims in Crimea and other area, have been attacked by these fascist groups. If they do not accept Orthodox of the same church, the same follower of their religion, because they are Russian, how can they accept Muslim and their church and their
and the Catholics and
exactly
different religious groups?
How they can accept these groups? So we're talking about fascists that need to be stopped. If this government do not do anything with the help of Western countries against these fascist groups, Russia has to do it. All the Russians or the Russians who live in this area. So this is what we have to talk about. NATO can do nothing because actually it's not, we said that before, it's not, we are not talking about Somalia or Burkina Faso. We are talking about Russia, and with Russia you cannot play. And the Western country, what they can do with Ukraine. Economically, they did nothing. They can do nothing. Yesterday we heard that Japan donate $1 billion to Ukrainian country.
What is $1 billion?
But till they get this money, what will be in Ukraine? Now, Ukraine need more than the 15 billion that had been given by Russia before they start the beginning of the crisis.
Okay, well,
till they get
Dr.
to the 15
Khalil,
billion,
I would actually like to sit
can
and
we get
discuss this issue more further, but due to lack of time, unfortunately, we're going to have to move on. Well, now, viewers, let's travel to Africa and see what we have over there today. And in Africa, starting off with the punch, 5 policemen, 32 others killed in Borno, Benue attacks. And from the Vanguard, 74 killed in fresh Benue, Borno mayhem. And from here to South Sudan's Gertong, South Sudan peace talks resume in Addis Ababa. So over here we hear of 74 people killed in Benue, Borno attacks. So can you tell us more about these attacks? What's the reasoning behind it exactly? And will we see an end to all this, all those massacres that are happening in that region?
It's very difficult to see a near end to this situation because of the lack of power and the real power in Africa and in the Black Africa, as we used to call it.
What about the African Union over here? Can't the African Union actually set foot and say, and basically put an end to this, or put at least a red line somewhere?
That's what we're saying now. This African Union has not enough power to say, that's it, enough, stop doing it. And this group today is formed on the same way that Borneo and the Central African Republic is made. I mean, these countries are part of the conflict that had been alimented in this area. We're talking about a conflict of religion background. They are supplying these groups in order to get this conflict done between groups and to get all the resources of the country through black market, with cheap black market. I mean, little money paid back to these groups and give them some more armament to get their power on, in order to keep the country in a poor situation, to keep the country fighting, and we take the resources of this continent. This continent had chances to improve if the Western countries that are taking the resources of African soil, if they decide to exchange the resources they're taking with the development of this country, they can get better results from this country. Even they can get better results with the immigration situation from Black Africa to Europe. That is a big challenge for the European country. If they exchange the resources of this country with the development to themselves, to the African countries, instead of supplying these groups with armament and creating an atmosphere of unconfidence between Christians and Muslims, it will be much better for these greedy groups and greedy companies that are fueling these fights and taking more resources and making people poorer and poorer every day.
Okay, well now let's travel to our last region for today, the United States of America. Starting off with the USA Today, administration extending healthcare sign-ups. And from the Washington Examiner, administration will give consumers extra time to sign up for Obamacare. And our last headline for today comes from the International New York Times. President seeks to limit NSA's phone logging. So in the USA, we see that once more they're extending the healthcare sign-ups. Now, clearly, it's not out of goodwill or the kindness of their hearts. Something must be going on over here. What, in your opinion, is the reason for this time's extension for the healthcare sign-ups?
Practically, we see that they have no, this Obama healthcare has no chance to be approved because of the different, the unbalance, correlation of power.
Are we looking at, it wouldn't be approved by this government, or wouldn't be approved in general?
It wouldn't be approved in general,
okay,
not at all.
Based on what wouldn't
Based on the correlation of power, first of all, and plus, if we are talking about the groups that having the economical power on the country, if they approve this healthcare of Obama, they know that the money has to go from their own pocket, from their own economy. I mean, their bank accounts. Who is going to supply this healthcare? It's only these big
the big
corporation that has to supply it. And they have the real power, the economic and the political power of the country. If they have the lobbies in the correlation of power, they will not approve this kind of project, this kind of healthcare. Why should they do it? If we see that deteriorating, the line of deteriorating healthcare and the social care in the United States, we can understand that this is going deeper and deeper every day, and there is no way that United States can approve any health care or any kind of social care from this administration or the future administration.
So what you're trying to say that from the start, all of these extensions and all of these basically stories that they've told us, once it was because there was glitches in the program, 2, there were glitches in the website, 3, because they extended due to budget cuts and whatnot. All of those are basically just they're all just made up.
It's a made up, and it's kind of preamble, introduction to the election campaign. We did everything. We extend his time. We give him more time. We extend it again and again, and he couldn't do anything about it. So we did our part. I mean, the Republicans would say we did our part. He failed. .com. So if we go to the elections, he wouldn't say that the Republicans did not approve. If he said that, we gave you all the time to prove it. We extended to you. And now we are on the safe side.
Okay, well, political analyst Dr. Nabil Khalil, thank you very much for an exciting episode today. Well, viewers, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. This is your host, Kareem Abdul Samad, signing out.